Good afternoon and welcome to June's Founder Friday. We are so excited to be with you today. We have this beautiful location here with Mount Hood behind us here in Dufur. And I have to say, we vetted this all out. We hope you can hear us well. The wind decided to blow. It was not blowing a little while ago, but this is Oregon, and the wind blows here, so we hope you can hear us well. And we've had lots of questions that have come in from customers, and so we did a Q&A with everyone a few Founder Fridays ago, and we're going to do another Q&A with you today to answer some of the questions that have been coming in from all of our customers. You.
All right.
So David, we have a number of questions, and I'm just going to start rattling these off and let you take the wheel on this. Sound good?
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so the first question that we've had come in from a lot of our newer customers, and thank you to all of the new customers who are joining us. We want to help clear a few things up. The first question was, can I buy from Azure without joining a drop location? So do I have to be a drop member to buy from Azure?
No, absolutely not. There's no membership required per se to buy from Azure here. The convenience of being a drop member is being able to get your order into your community. The drop membership thing is a convenience only. And, versus doing common carrier or UPS or something, it saves considerable money. But if you don't want to be the member of a drop, you can order via parcel carrier, postal, UPS, freight common carrier will be happy to ship your orders to you. Or, even better, you can actually still get a delivery on a truck if you can consistently meet the minimum order. So we do have what we call private drops, where we deliver products on the truck that are not really community drop points. But there is a very specific minimum order requirement for that to happen. The drop point makes that combined, so everybody together meets those minimum orders, which is usually never an issue, or when there's a lot of people together. It's like, many hands makes light work. Many orders makes easy drop minimums. So that's so absolutely you don't have to be the member of a drop, and there's several other ways to do it. Drops are a wonderful thing though. Our drop points, pickup locations are very convenient, most of the time more convenient than doing it on your own, and definitely more cost effective.
And you mentioned, and it actually goes really well with another question that came in about the delivery minimums and being able to, if you can meet it on your own or a combined minimum. And that was one of the questions that we had as well from a customer, which is, why do pickup locations have to have a minimum? So do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, absolutely. Well, we actually have to physically deliver in big trucks or small trucks or whatever we send to you. It is not cheap to run a truck. Trucks cost a lot of money, especially right now. The price of fuel the way it is. Drivers are a little bit in short supply in the general marketplace, so the costs of trucking are quite high, even compared to what they used to be, but they've always been high. Running trucks is not just, it doesn't happen for free. It didn't even happen for free when I used to drive it myself. It's not. So we had to create, there is a cost associated with going across town, finding a location, stopping, getting out of the truck, delivering. So there's mileage involved. We usually consider within 3 miles of route. We don't charge any extra. But you still have that 3 miles in and out, or sometimes it's less, sometimes it's close. So you've got some miles involved there, but mostly you got quite a bit of time involved. You got to get out of the truck, you got to walk to the back, you got to open the doors, you get in the truck, you get back out, you go to the frozen, get into the front to get the frozen. It just takes, it takes time and it costs money. And for a truck to get done in a timely manner, we can't do that too terribly many times. We can only do that so many times to get done in a week or whatever the time frame is. Usually it's less than a week, but the time frame that we allot for those orders to be done. If we were delivering all, say, 600 to 800 orders individually that are on a truck, there's no possible way the driver could ever get it done in any kind of timely manner so your produce is fresh when you get it. So that hence drop minimums. It's the cost and it's the timeliness.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering that. And thank you for bearing with us with any noise you hear around us. We are outside in town and people are, doing business. So we're real around here. That's all we can say. We're real around here. Thank you for answering those questions, David. And that leads into some other questions that some of our newer customers and maybe some of our longer term customers may have too and just have never maybe asked or thought about. So one of the questions was, do I have to order in bulk foods? Is that required, or can I order other quantities, other sizes?
I feel like here at Azure we've done really well with that. We have offered singles, we've offered smaller sizes. I mean, maybe not really tiny sizes on some things, but almost everything we have a small size. If you want to buy, organic almonds, we go all the way down to 1 pound. You can buy just 1 pound, or you can buy 5 pounds, or you can buy 25 pounds. Or, if we're doing lentils, you can buy as small as, I think it's 34 ounces, or 5 pounds, or 25 pounds, or bigger if you want. And we do that very much on purpose because, everyone's lifestyle is a little bit different in what you eat a lot of and a little of. So by buying in bulk, you save money. There's a cost savings. Typically, we always charge less because there's less handling. We don't have to put it in a box if it's, a 25-pound bag or whatever. So we pass all that savings back on to you. And that's why we specialize in a lot of bulk. But you can absolutely buy 1 pound. And everyone's household is a little different. Even if you have a large family and are eating all from Azure, there are, everyone's household is a little bit different in what you eat a lot of and what you eat a little of. For instance, in our house, we buy 25-pound bags or 50, of almonds. We buy a 50-pound box. We eat a lot of almonds. We eat a lot of, oats. We eat, that's always in a 25-pound bag. We bake our own bread, so bread flour is in a 25-pound bag. Of course, we have a lot of people. But, for instance, raisins. We may buy 5 pounds of raisins twice a year. We just are not really big raisin eaters at our house, but we do like to have them. Once in a while she wants to make oatmeal raisin cookies or something, so we do want to have raisins. So, we'll only buy 5 pounds or maybe even 1 pound if we're, usually maybe 5 pounds of raisins at a time. Whereas another family, many families eat a lot of raisins and they use that as a primary sweetener. So they'll buy a 30-pound box of raisins. Even though we do have, a larger family with more people, what we eat versus what somebody else eats in bulk.
All right, let's pause for 1 second. Sounds like we've got a truck coming by, so just a moment, folks. All right, there we go. Truck has gone by.
So I feel like I've over the years, I've really tried to make an attempt to have the quantities that you might use for your household, depending on how, your, cooking habits, So yes, absolutely, you can buy in bulk, you can buy in little stuff. We have customers that never buy any bulk. We have some customers that'll buy, 1s and 2s and 3 pounds of everything every month, every time. It's completely up to you.
And thank you for explaining that, and I love the different varieties that you were sharing. And just if I can contribute just a little bit to that, one of the things that we get a lot of questions, well, I guess we don't get questions on, but customers don't realize, because customers find us and having conversations with a lot of our customers. One of the questions I like to ask and have the team ask is, how did you find us? And customers are looking for something very specific often when they find us, or when somebody's sharing with them what they buy from us. And so it'll be a 25-pound bag of oats, or a big box of apples when we're in harvest for apples, or something like that. And so I think we end up getting seen more as that bulk food company, which we have those large sizes, as you were sharing. But I think also the understanding, when I'm talking to customers who will say, when I share that we have frozen and we have health and beauty like toothpaste and toothbrushes, and we have all these other categories, stainless steel bowls, kitchenware, electric fencing, we have all these various categories that sometimes when I'm talking to customers, because they've come in for baking for products, for flour or oats or something like that, the raisins for their cookies, we tend to be creatures of habit, and so we come for the same things that we always are purchasing from that one place. But we have so many categories that even I myself, I don't go to a grocery store. Very rarely do I ever have to walk into a grocery store, because everything I personally buy is from here at Azure. And that's everything from toilet paper and toothpaste and shampoo and cutlery for the kitchen, to stuff for outdoors, little, totes for carrying plants and things like that outside. Or there's so many varieties in the categories that we have. I think sometimes we don't realize how much more is available to us through the different categories that Azure has. So I encourage you, explore the other categories that we offer here at Azure. The frozen, as you mentioned on the truck, frozen steak and chicken and hot dogs, and beef hot dogs, by the way, folks, but hot dogs, and there's so many varieties and options.
Right
out
now
there.
in the frozen, it's fruits and vegetables. Everyone wants frozen fruits and vegetables, and I don't blame them, because they're very good, and they're it's top notch, and it's a very healthy way to do it.
It is, and actually that's one of the top things. So we buy in our own home, we buy the big blocks of cheese. We eat a lot of cheese, and we buy the frozen fruits and veggies, and especially the fruits, because we do a lot of smoothies. So frozen blackberries and strawberries and frozen bananas. We do a lot of the smoothies, and it makes it really easy just to grab a handful of different things and make a smoothie out of those. So there's a lot of options out there. So I encourage you to explore that if you haven't had a chance to explore. I can get lost on our website for hours. I mean, just hours, because there's so much. It's sad, actually, sometimes, but there's so much to explore with over, I think we're getting close to, 14,000 product SKUs right now? You say that's pretty accurate?
I think that's slightly more than we
maybe
actually
a little
have
more.
right now.
Okay.
I think it's closer to 10 or so. But
Okay. I'm a little overkill on that. I don't know. I get lost in so many of them that I spend a long time, and I make a wish list, because we have that favorites area, and I use that.
We do have extra SKUs that you might see. I mean, because we sell like a 3-pack of soap, and we also sell a single of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not really two different things. It's just, we offer just a little bit of money savings for our picker not to have to go to the shelf twice.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy 3 bottles of, dishwashing soap, then we give a little bit of savings for that.
Yeah.
But it's not 2 different items. It's the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess, if you look at all
life.
so if you look at all the SKUs, there's a lot of SKUs, but probably 10,000 products themselves, options. So that leads into another question on here. So let me get to that. It's kind of like a double question. We've had customers asking why we do drop deliveries on the holidays and weekends. And there are a couple holidays we don't. So Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving Day, we don't deliver at all on those days. But there are other, all the other holidays are kind of up in the air, and weekends. So if you can kind of speak to that and why we do that.
Well, 2 things. One thing is we're on a pretty tight schedule when it comes to, so I'm addressing the holiday thing first. So if we have a holiday that's on a Monday or in the middle of the week, it becomes almost impossible to completely drop that out without pushing weekends harder. So if we were not to deliver on Monday, we just went through, Memorial Day.
And we've got 4th of July coming up.
And we've got 4th of July coming up also on a Monday. Now we try to be reasonable about it, not deliver too late. 4th of July, people want to watch fireworks in the evening or go to a picnic or whatever, but for the most part, we are going to have to make that delivery. Otherwise, it doesn't give us any buffer whatsoever for the whole week. So it could take out the entire week if we miss that day, which then pushes us more into a weekend. So with the weekends, well, there's a couple of exceptions to that, which when we're hitting fairly close to here, where we're hitting some areas on our way out, and we do schedule those on weekends consistently, because we have to be in the major metro area on Monday morning in order to make the pickups and the deliveries to the stores and stuff. We can't. So a few of them, leaving out of here, we schedule Sunday afternoon consistently. But most of the routes, almost everywhere else, Sunday or weekends in general are just buffer days. So if we can't, we try our best to get everything scheduled within the week. And really, believe me, we really do try to do that. But there are times when that doesn't happen. Hey, we can't get started as early, which happens on a Monday. Let's say, if it is a holiday, but let's just say the trucks never stop. Let's say we have to get an oil change done on a Monday, or there's a little snow and things get a little slower that way, or there's 100 other things that can happen. So then we end up having to push the order out into the weekend days, because that's our only buffer, because we got another route. That driver has to be, that truck and trailer, and usually the driver, sometimes the drivers they rotate, but they have to be on another route and start delivery Monday morning. So if we can't get it done by Friday, we have no choice but to get those last few drops off on the weekend. And we do our best to accommodate the customers. Sometimes we'll deliver, Saturday morning based on customer preferences, sometimes Sunday afternoons, whatever we have to do to the best. And if you end up getting, you're welcome to let us know if there's something completely blocked out for you one way or another. And I wish we didn't have to deliver on weekends, not just for customers' sake, but for drivers' sakes and all that. But currently, it's not often, but it's frequent enough that probably many of you have experienced a weekend delivery. So, and then like I say, there's a few that in order for us to even do the route, we just have, if you're in Shaniko, Oregon, or some Northern California rural areas, we have no choice but to always deliver on a Sunday. It's just there's really no choice, and still to get things done. Eventually we'll be hopefully changing some of those routes and expanding some of those out, but right now, until that happens, that probably will stay. And I believe most of the drops that are consistently on a Sunday know that, and can realize that that's the case, or even semi-consistently on a Saturday, which I think is very rare. I don't really think we have very many consistent, or if any, Saturday deliveries, but we do have some Sunday afternoon ones.
Yeah, that are consistent for sure.
Yeah, so most of the Saturday deliveries we do are just because something went wrong.
Yeah.
So,
we've run into a delay. There's been fires in California. There's been heavy storms in the Midwest. There's been all kinds of things that, like you said, an oil filter needs to be changed and the driver has to stop. And
and sometimes it's not in any of those things. Sometimes it's just more drops than we anticipated.
Sure.
We put the drivers in the trucks, we schedule the equipment and stuff in advance, and if we get a big influx of orders that we didn't really expect, every drop takes time.
Yeah.
And if there was more than we allocated equipment for, we may just not be able to get it done based on the number of drops. Hopefully next month we won't do it again, but the amount of allocated equipment and drivers, some routes we put 2 trucks and drivers on, some 3, some just 1, and we allocate that all out based on past experience. And if current doesn't mirror past, we can't do that at the drop of a hat. We can't pull trucks and drivers out of the hat. It's difficult to allocate, especially if it's in Minnesota and we don't have a truck within 1,000 miles of there. So he's got to that driver may have to go into the weekend to get it all off so he can be ready to go on Monday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine things like the Department of Transportation driver allotted hours and things like that also come into play, because if we have more orders on a route than we expected, that now takes the driver more time. That now eats into time that was not anticipated, and he's got to have his rest times.
Yeah,
as well.
and we try always. DOT requires 34 hours off at least once a week, at least the way that we do stuff. There are ways that doesn't apply, but with the deliveries and all the work time they do that's not driving time, it almost always applies to our drivers. So we try to always reset that on a weekend. But if the driver gets done on Friday night, he takes Friday night. Or if he quits Friday night, if there's some left over, then he has a choice. We either have to do it Saturday morning so he can still get his 34 off, or we have to do it Sunday afternoon so he can take Friday night off, all day Saturday off, Sunday night off. Then he can be in position sometime Sunday afternoon to finish the rest of those up. Or he has to do it Saturday morning, get those off, park Saturday night, take Sunday off Sunday night, and start delivering again Monday morning. So we have, that's why it ends up being usually either Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon when those extra ones are done, because we have to have a 34 off in there. There's occasional exceptions to that when a driver is maybe going off route and this is going to be it for him and somebody else is going to take his place. Then that 34 doesn't apply, because he'll be once he's done, he's going to have a week off or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I am so glad that we have a really intelligent logistics team who deals with all of those moving pieces, because it is a lot of complexity and moving pieces for sure. So very grateful for them. They do an excellent job.
It is one of the most complex things that we do here at Azure as far as actual complexity, but we don't want it to seem complex to our customers.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. Hopefully we send out the schedule and we more or less meet it, and if we don't meet it, we tell you. That's our goal.
That's right.
There's a question. Brenda would like to know if there's a possibility of having an additional warehouse in another part of the country.
There is always that possibility.
So do you want me to just reiterate it, kind of the question loudly enough that maybe everybody
Sure.
hears, just in case? So the question, it sounds like, is there a possibility for us to have another warehouse somewhere else in the country?
Yeah, and truthfully, we've actually been talking about that a little bit in our leadership team. We've had good growth the past 3 years. It's been really strong. We're building on to the current warehouse in Morrow, so we will have more space there. I think, if we maintain our current growth rate, that will last us a couple of years, maybe 3. But again, that's really hard to tell. How everything plays out as far as our continued growth rate. But we are getting a lot of customers on the East Coast, and the Southeast and the Northeast, for that matter, is growing. Not nearly as many on the Northeast, but it is growing some. So we've actually talked a little bit about that. You know, if we put a second warehouse in somewhere centrally located to kind of the eastern seaboard, I was thinking, you know, okay, you know, Kentucky, West Virginia, somewhere maybe southern Ohio, I don't know, something like that. But we do not have anything at this point located, nothing. You know, we're concentrating on finishing the warehouse project that we have. Once we're done with that and get that all operating smoothly, we'll start maybe getting serious about that. So, you know, that is, and again, that also depends on, you know, the growth that we get. You know, as far as the East Coast, you know, warehouse, you know, it would definitely make it quicker for people that live on the eastern side of the country to, between the time they place their order and they get delivery, would shorten considerably. There's a few things that it would create cost savings on, but for the vast majority of stuff, most of it's coming in on the Pacific side. So we're still going to have to truck it across the country. Probably, when I was doing the math, 80 to 85%. About 15% goes from east to west, which would save some money for the East Coast folks. But anyway, that's where that's at.
So thank you, David, for answering that, and thank you, Brenda, for that question. We appreciate it. So I have two more questions on my list, and then if anything else comes in, we'll try to address it. We're trying to stay within that 30 to 40 minute range here. So the next question we have is around fuel prices. So with fuel prices increasing, do we anticipate we're going to see more product prices beginning to increase again?
I don't know that product price changes have ever really stopped all the way. Unfortunately, we keep getting price changes on a fairly regular basis from our vendors. Unfortunately, I think this is more of a political economic thing than it is anything else, but there is definitely some supply chain stuff that plays into that. You know, scarcity, you know, hey, and you know, in many ways I don't begrudge it, although, you know, I hate to see prices go up for many of you, but, you know, just in the past year, you know, we're paying 3 times as much for wheat as we did a year ago. And the reason is because the farmers that have it know that it's in short supply. And they're taking advantage of that, and, you know, and they've had a long run of pretty low prices, so it's hard to blame them for that. And, you know, we've been selling way more than we originally contracted for, so, you know, I can't go back to contracts, and all new contracts are going to be at much higher prices just because all the farmers know that the prices are up. So, you know, and with international goods, we're seeing some price increases, more moderate as far as the price increases, but the shipping, the ocean freight, has well more than tripled in the past, you know, 16 months or so. Has probably more like quadrupled or 5 times as much. I mean, the container that I was paying, you know, $44,000 for just 2 years ago is now $18,000 to get, you know, say from somewhere in the, you know, underbelly of Asia to here. So those kinds of price increases, and I don't really know that there's an end in sight. And a lot of that, of course, is fuel related. Azure has no plans of like doing a fuel surcharge or anything like that in the near future, but we can't, you know, we don't know the future, and we can't really rule it out completely, but we have no plans of doing so. The plans are right now, the product pricing is raising fast enough that the margins, I believe, are covering the increased delivery fuel charges. To be straightforward with that, I think what we're experiencing right now. But don't be surprised to see price changes, guys. It's just the world we live in right now, and especially the food category. When we're talking about food and energy, I don't know. I don't know if there's an end in sight.
And that kind of leads. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's going to be very individualized with what product you're talking about.
Yeah, and we're seeing them do this. Really, I mean, kind of like that, I suppose. but that, so you may have it in your cart and go back to your cart, and it's going to be different, and that's just because those prices are coming in the way they're coming in, and they're fluctuating.
Yeah, and in order to combat this, I mean, for full transparency, guys, in a little over a year ago now, I automated our price changes because I was completely losing control of it. And so you will see more fluctuation in prices up or down than you've seen in the past. So right now, I've set the software up and on almost everything to the way that we work. We've always worked on a cost plus basis. Azure just does that, and we have since day one. So we always raise prices when prices go up, we lower prices when prices go down. But now that is automated. So based on what we paid for a product, our landed cost, or the cost that we have once it hits our warehouse, that cost, then we have a margin set, and the system automatically changes the prices every time we get a new shipment in. Sometimes it doesn't change because the price didn't change. In fact, lots of times it doesn't change. We don't change it for just pennies. It has to be like a certain percentage. I think it's 5% or something to trigger. But those changes are automated, so you will see more price changes. And I don't know if we could have survived not doing that, just because of the extreme inflationary pressure that we've experienced the past year. It's just the way it has to be. There's nothing else we can really do.
Yeah, it's definitely the world we live in right now, for sure.
We still try to be the best price that we possibly can be. I'll promise you that always. I always want to be the highest quality for the best value. I don't want to be cheap. I don't want to give you any garbage. No second-rate stuff. Unless we absolutely tell you it's second-rate stuff. We do some of that in bargain bin and stuff occasionally. But no second-rate stuff. But I want to give you always. That's my mission, really, is to give you the best value possible on high-quality goods.
So that actually leads in well with the last question that we have, and talking about what's happening with prices and those kinds of things. The last question we have that I think is kind of a vague one. It's hard. I know it's going to be a little more challenging to answer, but it's what customers are asking. With the supply chain challenges and the food shortages that we're seeing, people are concerned. Is there going to be enough? Are there crops that we're going to run out of? And, from your perspective, what does that look like?
Well, hey, there's no absolute answer for that, and I'm not a prophet. So I can't absolutely answer that with pure accuracy. For the most part, U.S. crops don't look too terribly bad right now. But for the most of the crops in the breadbasket of the U.S. are really late. A lot of farmers in the Dakotas, even throughout the Midwest, even here for that matter, although here it's not such a problem. But many of those places, they have a relatively short season anyway. And it was so wet in the spring and cold in some places even here in the Willamette Valley, I mean, some guys that, you know, we're going to see some issues with things like blueberries. I shouldn't throw that out there in general, but blueberries, it was so wet and cold during pollination that the blueberry crop is going to be less than half of what it normally is here in the Northwest. We raise about, you know, half the nation's supply of blueberries here in the Northwest. You know, obviously Michigan looks a little better. They raise a fair jag as well. And the same with some of the vegetable crops. They just couldn't get them in. So most of them are in now, but they're late. And so we're susceptible to the possibility of an early freeze. If that doesn't happen, if we have a beautiful fall, we're going to be looking at some really nice crops. If we don't have a beautiful fall, we could be looking at stuff that gets frozen before it's completely mature. So there's still
Wait for this part. There we go.
So it's still a little bit hard to tell at this point what, you know, a lot of the grains and stuff like that are going to look like. Worldwide, with the world supply, it's been a mixed bag. We haven't had overwhelming bumper crops worldwide, but we've had moderate crops. We haven't had worldwide huge crop failures either. So I guess if I were just to project, I would say there's not going to be absolute major food shortages, starvation, at least not in America. But we are going to continue to see higher food prices for a while. I don't think that, you know, and again, it's going to be very individualized. There's some things that, you know, are a little bit more fussy as far as weather and all that, that we're gonna probably see some major price increases. Some things that you know, are not quite as fussy, we may see prices drop a little bit from what they are right now. But I would say, you know, we have at least another year of higher food prices and upward pressure on food prices. So if I was going to just guess, and you know, again, I'm not a prophet, I'm just guessing based on what I'm seeing in the marketplace. I would predict that we're going to be seeing tight food supplies for the next year. And it's really about the first time in the history of Azure that we have had that you know, here at Azure, that we've dealt with overall tight food supplies. I mean, there's been particular items. I mean, there was a big crop failure on one thing. I mean, maybe there's no white beans or something. And we've seen prices skyrocket or them not be available, you know, in specialty things, flaxseed or something, you know, that's, we've seen that throughout the years. But I've never really seen worldwide food scarcity, even though it's not non-existent. The food is still coming in, but it's just tight. There's just not as much. You know, 10 years ago, the US in general had enough grain to last almost a year. If there would have been no crop, we could have probably made it for a year. Over the past 10 years, that's slowly dwindled. And that doesn't really exist anymore. Last I read, it's down to less than 2.5 months. At the end of this year, and again, you know, the U.S. is a big country. Grain is starting to harvest down in the south. South Texas is starting to harvest right now. So, and it'll continue to harvest clear until the snow flies in the northern tiers. So it takes a long time for all the data to come in on that. But I've never seen anything where everything's just, so we say, hand to mouth, or, you know, it's almost kind of like living paycheck to paycheck. And that's kind of the way the food supply is right now. It's almost paycheck to paycheck. We don't have a savings account much anymore. I mean, here at Azure we have, you know, we have some bins of grain and some different things, But I've found, especially over the course of the past 6 months or so, that hey, it's not going to last very long if we don't have more coming in. There's just there's been a lot of demand for some of those items, and even what we have set aside, if we were not able to get any more in, wouldn't last real long. It's just would I recommend storing food? I think in a moderate way. I always recommend storing food. I think it's a good idea to have some food in the house. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but I really don't think. I think it's going to be a year or so before we see prices go down substantially. So if you're laying in a little bit of wheat, don't lay in enough for years, but maybe lay in a little bit, because I don't think the price is going to go down in the next year. Again, like I say, I'm not a prophet. Something could happen that makes that change, but that's kind of the way I'm seeing it right now. The good news is I think there's going to be sufficient. I don't think there's going to be widespread hunger. We're just going to have to spend a little bit bigger portion of our income on food and energy, obviously.
Well, David, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that. I know that's been a big question that's been coming in from customers, and it's good to just kind of, like you said, nobody can be a prophet, but we can certainly take your experience and your long history as a farmer and seeing the markets and understanding what they do, and at least get an idea from it. So thank you for sharing that. So we just want to thank, were there any other questions that came? Okay. So we're going to conclude the Founders Friday for June. Thank you so much. And we just want to thank our long-term customers who've been with us for a long time. Thank you for the dedication and support you've given us through the years, and to all of our new customers who are coming in and joining the Azure family. We welcome you and we thank you for joining us, and we look forward to serving all of you, no matter how long you've been with us. As always, as we're sharing at the end of our Founder Fridays, if you have a question for a future Q&A or that you would like an answer to, please email info@azurestandard.com, put Founder Friday question in the subject line, and the team will make sure it gets to the right place so that we can answer your question. Thank you again. We greatly appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, and make it an awesome day.